Let's begin. The threats are: rook takes pawn, check. Queen takes knight, check. Queen takes rook, check. Let us look at checks in puzzle position. Bishop to h6, check. Bishop to e7, check. Rook takes pawn, check. Queen takes knight, check. Queen to g4, check. Queen to h5, check. Queen to g3, check. Queen takes rook, check. h4, check. Here is the solution to the puzzle. Bishop to e7, check. King to f5. Queen to e4, check. King to e6. Queen takes knight. Let's see the next puzzle. The threats are: rook takes pawn. Queen takes pawn. Checks in this position are: rook to d8, check. The best move in puzzle position is: queen takes pawn. King to g8. Queen takes knight. Let's see the next puzzle. Threats in puzzle position are: bishop takes knight. Bishop takes pawn. Knight takes knight. Knight takes pawn. Knight takes knight. Pawn takes knight. There are no checks in this position. Here is the solution to the puzzle. Knight takes knight. Pawn takes knight. Pawn takes knight. Next, threats in this position are: there are no threats in this position. Let us look at checks in puzzle position. Rook to g8, check. Rook to h4, check. Solution to the puzzle is: rook to h4, check. Queen to h7. Rook takes queen, check. King takes rook. Rook to g7, check. King to h6. Rook takes bishop. Next, here are the threats. Bishop takes knight. Queen takes bishop. Queen takes knight. Queen takes pawn. There are no checks in this position. Here is the solution to the puzzle. Bishop takes knight. Bishop takes queen. Bishop takes queen. Another one. Threats in puzzle position are: queen takes pawn, check. Queen takes pawn. Rook takes pawn. Rook takes pawn. Here are the checks. Queen takes pawn, check. Rook to d1, check. Answer to this puzzle is: queen takes pawn, check. King to h2. Queen takes pawn, checkmate. Another one. Puzzle position vulnerabilities are: bishop takes pawn, check. Queen takes knight. The checks are: bishop takes pawn, check. Here is the solution to the puzzle. Bishop takes pawn, check. King to h8. Queen takes queen. Rook takes queen. Rook takes rook. Another one. The threats are: there are no threats in this position. The checks are: rook to h3, check. The answer is: rook to h3, check. King to g2. Rook to h2, check. King to f3. Bishop to e2, checkmate. Let us go to the next puzzle. Threats in this position are: knight takes pawn. Queen takes pawn. Queen takes pawn. Checks in puzzle position are: queen to e1, check. Bishop to h2, check. The puzzle is solved using: queen to e1, check. Queen to f1. Bishop to h2, check. King takes bishop. Queen takes queen. Let's continue. The threats are: rook takes rook, check. Rook takes pawn. Knight takes pawn. Checks in puzzle position are: queen to g5, check. Rook takes rook, check. Answer to this puzzle is: rook takes rook, check. Rook takes rook. Queen takes rook, check. King takes queen. Knight takes pawn, check. Next, let us look at threats in puzzle position. Rook takes bishop. Queen takes pawn, check. Queen takes bishop. Knight takes queen. Knight takes pawn. The checks are: queen takes pawn, check. The puzzle is solved using: knight takes queen. Let's see the next puzzle. Here are the threats. Knight takes pawn. Queen takes pawn. Queen takes pawn, check. Here are checks in puzzle position. Knight to f3, check. Queen takes pawn, check. Here is the solution to the puzzle. Knight to f3, check. Bishop takes knight. Rook takes rook, check. Next puzzle. Here are threats in puzzle position. Queen takes rook, check. Queen takes pawn, check. Queen takes pawn, check. Queen takes pawn. Queen takes queen. Bishop takes pawn. The checks are: queen takes rook, check. Queen takes pawn, check. Queen to g7, check. Queen to h8, check. Queen takes pawn, check. Rook to e8, check. Solution to the puzzle is rook to e8, check. Rook takes rook. Queen takes queen. One more. Puzzle position vulnerabilities are pawn takes queen. Knight takes pawn. Knight takes knight. Queen takes pawn. Bishop takes pawn. There are no checks in this position. The best move in puzzle position is knight takes knight. Queen takes queen. Knight takes queen. Let's see the next puzzle. Here are the threats. Pawn takes bishop, check. Rook takes pawn. Queen takes bishop, check. Here are the checks. Pawn takes bishop, check. Queen takes bishop, check. The answer is queen takes bishop, check. King to h8. Queen takes bishop, check. Let us go to the next puzzle. Here are threats in puzzle position. Pawn takes pawn. There are no checks in this position. The puzzle is solved using c5, a4. Pawn takes pawn. Next puzzle, threats in this position are queen takes pawn, check. Rook takes pawn. The checks are queen takes pawn, check. Answer to this puzzle is rook takes pawn. Queen takes rook. Bishop to c4. Queen takes bishop. Queen takes queen, check. One more. Here are threats in puzzle position. Queen takes pawn. Queen takes pawn. Queen takes knight. Bishop takes pawn. Checks in puzzle position are queen to h3, check. Here is the solution to the puzzle. Queen to h3, check. King to g8. Bishop takes knight. Rook to e6. Bishop takes pawn. Pawn takes bishop. Queen takes rook, check. Rook to f7. Queen to g4. Queen to d6. Queen takes pawn, check. Another puzzle. Puzzle position vulnerabilities are pawn takes knight. Pawn takes pawn. Bishop takes pawn, check. Queen takes pawn. Here are checks in puzzle position. Bishop takes pawn, check. The answer is pawn takes knight. Bishop takes pawn. Queen takes bishop. One more. Let us look at threats in puzzle position. Knight takes pawn, check. Bishop takes pawn. Rook takes knight. Here are checks in puzzle position. Knight takes pawn, check. Knight to d5, check. Solution to the puzzle is rook takes knight. Rook takes rook. Knight to d5, check. King to c6. Knight takes rook. Next, the threats are knight takes pawn. Knight takes pawn. Knight takes pawn. Queen takes pawn, check. Here are the checks. Queen to f5, check. Queen takes pawn, check. Queen to h7, check. Here is the solution to the puzzle. Queen to h7, check. Bishop to g7. Queen takes pawn, check. King to g8. Queen to e8, check. Next puzzle, let us look at threats in puzzle position. Queen takes pawn. Checks in puzzle position are queen to a5, check. Queen to d6, check. Queen to e7, check. Queen to f8, check. Queen to d4, check. Queen to d2, check. Rook to d1, check. The answer is queen to e7, check. King to c8. Queen takes knight. Another one. Let us look at threats in puzzle position. Bishop takes rook. Pawn takes pawn. The checks are bishop to d5, check. Queen to b7, check. Queen to b8, check. The best move in puzzle position is bishop takes rook. Queen to e1, check. King to g2. Queen takes pawn, check. King to g1. Another one. The threats are rook takes knight. Queen takes pawn, check. Queen takes pawn. Here are the checks. Bishop to e3, check. Queen to e3, check. Queen takes pawn, check. The puzzle is solved using queen to e3, check. One more. Threats in this position are queen takes bishop. Bishop takes pawn, check. The checks are queen to e7, check. Queen to d8, check. Queen to g7, check. Queen to g8, check. Queen to h6, check. Bishop takes pawn, check. The best move in puzzle position is bishop takes pawn, check. King to e8. Queen to e7, checkmate. Thank you for watching, please like and subscribe.